One of the biggest critiques the raw diet gets is that it's unnecessarily complicated. I get comments often from people saying that our pets' wild ancestors don't eat gourmet plated meals with 5 different protein sources. In other comments, our owners confused over why we feed cats and ferrets something like beef when that's not an animal they would eat in the wild. I also get a handful of comments stating raw feeders make it too scary and complicated. So let's go over why the raw diet has evolved this way, and hopefully things will start to make sense. One of the biggest arguments against an NRC balanced meal is that it's not something our pets' wild ancestors would eat in the wild. They don't eat balanced meals every day, yet they still live long lives. So why do we have to make it complicated with balancing? Something that many who make these claims tend to not realize is that the prey animals our pets' wild cousins eat are actually very close to being balanced meals already. This is because these prey animals have all of the glands, organs, blood, and other body parts that provide a huge array of essential nutrients that the predator needs. But for the average pet owner, it's a lot harder to get their hands on whole prey animals. And even if they could, this would be extremely expensive unless they raise their own prey animals. Just like commercial kibble is balanced to the pet's nutrient requirements with synthetic nutrients, raw feeders have also done this with more accessible, fresh food sources that are usually animal-based. And this is where more confusion tends to arise. Raw feeders put many different whole foods in their pets' meals to add in essential nutrients, because a diet of muscle meat, raw bone, and 2 secreting organs won't provide enough. The nutrients that are often lacking in a PMR meal like this are DHA, iodine, vitamin D, vitamin E, zinc, and manganese. This is where other whole food sources come in. These can be foods from mussels, oysters, and fish to nuts, seeds, and kelp. Of course, our pets' cousins don't often find these foods in the wild and would rarely be seen eating them. However, these foods still have high bioavailability, meaning the nutrients they provide can be easily utilized by dogs, cats, and ferrets. The only exceptions are plant-based foods like nuts, seeds, and vegetables, which should only be offered to dogs and need to be prepared properly first. Well, what about feeding muscle meats of animals that our pets may never catch in the wild? For instance, feeding hoofed animals like cows and deer to cats and ferrets. Just like fish and kelp have their place in the raw diet, so do red meats. Animals that wild felines and mustelids catch in the wild, like rabbit, quail, squirrel, and other birds and rodents, are going to have redder muscle meat. Because these animals are either walking for long periods of time or flying, their muscles need more myoglobin. Myoglobin stores oxygen in the muscle cells, which extracts energy needed for activity. Farmed rabbits and poultry are often in a pen or a cage and aren't using their muscles often. This means their muscle meats will be whiter and contain less myoglobin. Myoglobin-rich meats are beneficial because they naturally contain more nutrients like iron, zinc, selenium, taurine, and all B vitamins. These are all nutrients that are essential for carnivores, so they need to be included in the diet daily. And of course, I can't ignore the comments about raw feeders making this diet confusing, overwhelming, and essentially turning other people off. This is the opposite of what most raw feeders want, but at the same time, don't want to see others harming their pets in the long run. In reality, your dog won't die from eating an unbalanced raw meal for a few years, but a few health issues may arise. Commercial kibble manufacturers follow nutrient guidelines as well, but create shortcuts by adding in nutrients synthetically most of the time. If you want to feed your pet a raw diet but are overwhelmed by the balancing work, there's a few things you can do. Number 1, purchase a meal formulation consult from a certified nutritionist. Number 2, feed a balanced commercial raw food. Or number 3, buy a premix meal completer like Easy Complete, No Better, or Dr. Harvey's Raw Vibrance. While some of these completers contain synthetic nutrients rather than fresh food sources, it's certainly better than feeding an unbalanced meal. If you're wondering how to figure out what nutrients your pet needs, watch this video.